They left this dog for dead, but an old man's kindness changed everything. A shout came first, raw and sudden, then a ragged half-sob that sounded like someone trying to breathe with no lungs, and finally a dry, heavy crack. The wooden bat thudding into flesh in a sound that should not belong to the world. I set my coffee down and the hot liquid spilled over my hand, but I felt nothing at all because the noise hit again and again. Each strike a broken, high animal sound so small and thin it made my chest tighten. It was wrong. I turned toward the Dalton place 2 lots over the house everyone kept their distance from.
You're safe now.
And the back door was wide open.
I got you.
And there he was, a man with a face red as a boil swinging wood, yelling into the rain while a dog lay face down in the dirt, its back a purple bruise, and its legs flailing uselessly. The bat slapped flesh, and the sound it made was not human. It chilled my skin and seemed to clot the blood in my veins. It was a scream of guilt. "Stop," I roared, but my voice broke against the wind and rain. He did not stop. One blow landed so hard that dirt flew in a streak and the dog made a splintered cry, a sound that had no air left in it, like a life breaking into pieces. I had lived 65 years, seen wars, buried friends, and lost my wife, but I had never heard anything like that. It sounded like the kind of silence that had been building up for too long. I ran off the porch gravel, crunching under my boots, and the cold wind slapped my face, and every house on Maple Avenue remained shuttered and still as if the whole street had agreed to look the other way. Everyone heard it, but no one came out. I went to the leaning picket fence and peered through, and there it was in terrible detail. The dog fur, matted with blood chest, heaving like a tired bellows. One leg twisted the wrong way, eyes gone hollow with fear. And the end of Dalton's wooden stick was caked with hair and mud. He snarled, "Get out, Carter. It's my business." And I pointed at him until my voice cracked with anger. "That's a life. You don't have the right." He raised the bat, and I knew if I didn't act now, the next strike would finish it. So I climbed the fence, splinters tearing my palms and blood seeping, and I felt nothing. "Stop," I shouted again, and one of the neighbors spat something like, "Don't you step another inch, old fool." But I kept moving, the metallic stench of blood and mud and fear turning my stomach. I dropped to my knees beside the dog. It glanced at me with a tiny trembling eye, and its breath was a thread I could feel. "It's okay, kid," I whispered. "It's okay." And I put my hand to its neck and felt a heartbeat weak, but still there. Dalton barked from behind me. "It's mine. Leave it," and I lifted the dog and its bones bumped against mine like an ember and ash light as dust. "No," I croaked, "from now on, it belongs to life." The stick in his hand stilled for a moment, maybe from fear, maybe because he glimpsed in my face something he could not read. Desperation turned to resolve. I turned away, pushed the gate open, and the hinge shrieked like metal tearing in my chest. Rain began to fall, each drop, clapping the world into the same gray rhythm, and the wetness mixed with the warm breath of the small creature in my arms. It made one last thin groan like someone breaking a last promise, and I said softly, I know. Behind me, Dalton shouted something that the rain swallowed. I didn't hear it. I only knew I was walking, holding the dog, my heart, a thunder, my breath ragged, and one thought repeating like a prayer. If I don't do something, who will? Halfway down the road, I looked back. His house stood silent, the bat thrown on the ground, the door shut, and a horror quiet settled over the block. I bent over the small animal Rain running through its matted fur, and I said, We're going home. I won't let anyone hurt you again. I held on tight and walked through the rain, and in that instant I understood something simple and brutal. Some cries should never be swallowed by silence, and that morning I chose to smash it to pieces. I drove through the downpour like a man racing time itself. The dog lay behind the seat, gasping, each rasping breath cutting through me like a blade. Blood soaked the old blanket, turning it the color of dusk, and I didn't know how long he had left. I only knew that if I stopped, he would die. Blue Ridge Haven Veterinary Clinic sat 3 miles away, a blur of neon through the rain. I pulled straight into the lot, left the engine running, and pushed the door open so hard the bell slammed against the frame. A young veterinarian turned and froze. "Oh my God, what happened?" she gasped. "I don't know," I said. "I just heard it being beaten. Please save him." They wheeled out a stretcher and lifted him onto the stainless steel table. Cold light spilled down. I stood behind the glass as his swollen body trembled under the beam. Knees bruised, black fur matted with dried blood, each breath short and frantic. The vet's scissors sliced through his collar with a sharp, clean sound. A nurse murmured multiple trauma. Must have been hit again and again. The words made my hands clench until the veins rose white beneath my skin. Her name tag read Nina. She turned toward me. "Are you his owner?" "No," I said quietly, "but the man who was doesn't deserve to be." She studied me for a heartbeat, then gave a small nod and went back to work. On the wall above her hung a treatment chart, $2,400. I reached for my wallet. Inside was one envelope, the money I'd saved for my old age for burial for the last few bills waiting at home. I set it on the counter. "This is all I have. Do everything you can." She hesitated. "Are you sure surgery will cost more?" "Do it," I said. "He has to live." The room filled with the slow rhythm of the heart monitor beep, beep, beep. Steady, but fragile, I stood there, soaked to the bone, my shirt sticking to my skin hand, still trembling, and wondered how many people in that town had heard the same cries this morning and chosen to do nothing. Nina stepped out. "He's weak," she said softly, "but there's hope. You should rest." "Can I stay?" I asked. She nodded. "As long as you stay outside the glass." I sank into a metal chair. The clock read 10:47 a.m. Inside, they cleaned the blood, set the IV line, and pressed cold packs to swollen joints. When he whimpered just once, everyone in the room stopped. That sound. It's the kind of sound that follows you for the rest of your life. Through the glass, I no longer saw a filthy, broken animal, but something fighting to believe that the world wasn't entirely cruel. I knew that feeling. I had lived like that, silent, enduring, convinced no one would ever come. Maybe this morning I saved him, but in some quiet way, he was saving me too. Close to noon, Sheriff Cole Ramirez walked in, rain still dripping off his hat. "Carter, you okay?" "I heard about Dalton's place." "I'm fine," I said. "The dog isn't. You shouldn't have gone in there alone. You know that." I lifted my eyes to his and didn't look away. "If I didn't, who would?" "You." He held my stare for a moment, then sighed. "I'll look into it. Let the vet work now." I nodded, but the thought in my head was sharp, and certain no one stays silent after today. By afternoon, the rain had faded to mist. Nina came out, peeled off her gloves, and said gently, "He made it through the first critical hours. Now he just needs time." I looked through the glass. His body was still wrapped in white, but his chest rose and fell more evenly. I whispered, "You hear that, kid? You just won your first fight." Nina smiled faintly. "Have you thought of a name for him?" I paused, then said, "Teddy, because he deserves to be held, not hit." She nodded, her eyes wet. I sat there long after she left. The last light of day spilled through the window, washing over his bruised body until it glowed faintly with warmth. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing I knew for certain: I wouldn't walk away. Not ever again. The next morning, I went back to Blue Ridge Haven. The air was cold and clean, the smell of antiseptic still clinging to my sleeves. Teddy lay inside the glass chamber, his legs wrapped in white bandages, small electrodes taped to his chest. On the monitor, his heartbeat flickered slowly and weakly, but steadily. Still there, still alive. I stood for a long time unable to speak, until Dr. Nina stepped out of the treatment room, her voice quiet and careful. "Mr. Carter, he's stable for now," she said, "but his old wounds show something else. He's been beaten for a long time." I swallowed hard. "A long time?" She nodded. "Yes. This wasn't the first time. Just the one that almost killed him." The words hit like a nail through my chest. I tightened my shaking hands and nodded. "You saved him," I said. "I'll handle the rest." 3 hours later, Sheriff Cole Ramirez arrived. He'd known me for years, the widower who kept to himself, harmless, polite. His eyes looked different now. "Carter, I need to ask again. You entered Dalton's yard." "Yes," I said. "I heard the stick. I heard the cries. If you'd been there, you would have done the same. Dalton claims you trespassed and stole his dog. He's got witnesses. He's threatening charges." I stared straight at him. He beat it nearly to death. "Don't talk to me about paperwork." Cole sighed. "I believe you. But around here, people don't want trouble. They'd rather look away. If Justice is afraid," I said quietly, "then Justice is already dead." The words silenced him. Finally, he said, "I'll go to the property myself. If I find evidence, I won't let him walk." That afternoon, I went home. Every door on the street was shut. No one called out. Only a folded note waited in my mailbox. "Mind your own business, Carter." I crumpled it and threw it into the fire. The house felt hollow. Evelyn's picture on the wall watched me like she was whispering, "Don't back down." I poured a small glass of whiskey and set it before her frame. "You once told me kindness isn't meant to be kept in drawers," I said softly. Today I opened it. By 7 that evening I was back at the clinic. Teddy still hadn't opened his eyes, the monitor pulsing in slow, steady beats while Nina changed the IV bag. "He's hanging in there," she said, "but the fear runs deep." "I'll stay," I told her, "as long as it takes." That night, I sat in the waiting chair, my back against the wall, rain streaking the window. I had forgotten what it felt like to wait for someone to live. The last time was 11 years ago, Evelyn in the ICU. I couldn't save her. But this morning, I saved a life. And maybe, somehow, that life was saving me back. The next morning, Cole called. "Carter, we found the wooden bat. There's blood on it. I've sent it for testing." "Is he arrested?" I asked. "Not yet. We need confirmation. He's local, got family all over. This town's complicated." I gave a dry laugh. Complicated is just another word for pretending not to see. That afternoon, as I left the clinic, 2 neighbors stopped me. "You've stirred up enough trouble, old man. You know who Dalton is." I looked at them, tired but sure. "Yeah, I know. I also know what's right." They said nothing, just lowered their eyes. When I came back, Teddy was awake. One eye swollen, the other half open, looking at me, not afraid, just quiet. I placed my hand on his head. "You're safe now, kid. No one's ever gonna hit you again." He gave a faint whimper and nudged my palm. The last light of day streamed through the window, turning the bruises on his fur into something almost gold. Standing there, I understood something simple and unshakable. No one is born a hero. But there are moments when if you don't step forward, silence kills you both, the victim and the one who watches. On the 3rd morning, after it all began, the phone rang at 6. Cole Ramirez's voice on the other end was hoarse, weary. "Carter, you need to come down to the station. We're taking your official statement today. I'll be there." I pulled on my old jacket, my hands shaking on the zipper. Outside Willow Creek was buried in a white fog thick enough to hide every truth people didn't dare mention. I drove the old pickup down the empty road past Dalton's house door. Still shut. Fence tilted weeds high the silence heavy as guilt. At the station, the sun hadn't even cleared the trees. Cole sat behind his desk with a clerk beside him, pen ready. "Carter," he said, "just tell it exactly as it happened. Nothing more." I nodded. "I'm not making anything up. I heard the stick. I heard the cries and I saw him beating that dog. Anyone else witness it? No. Because everyone's afraid. But fear doesn't turn wrong into right." The room went still. I glanced toward the barred window where the first thin light slipped across my scarred hands. I had never felt smaller in my life and never more certain. That afternoon, Cole came to the clinic. Nina was washing instruments, watching him warily. "Doctor," he said, "we need Teddy's injury report." "I've already sent it," she replied. 3 broken ribs, hip trauma. Deep bruising across the chest. No accident could cause that. Cole nodded. "Thank you." Then he turned to me. "Your statement matches the injuries. I'll send the file to the county." "So, justice starts now?" I asked. He pressed his lips together. "Justice moves slower than we do." That night, rocks hit my front door. Glass shattered in the dark, followed by voices shouting, "Mind your own damn business, old man." I turned on the porch light, but they were gone. Only one rock remained big as a fist, with 2 smeared words scrawled across it. "Shut up." I looked out. Lights burned in every window up and down the street, but not one person stepped out. No one asked if I was okay. I whispered to myself, "It's fine. I already survived my own funeral once. I'm not afraid to do it again." The next morning, Nina called. "Mr. Carter Teddy's crashing. We're starting fluids and heart support. Can you come? I was there in minutes." Teddy lay on his side, eyes half closed, breath shallow and uneven. The monitor glowed, red heart rate flickering. "Will he make it?" I asked. Nina shook her head. "I don't know. He's got a few hours to fight his way back." I sank to the floor beside him, gripping his paw. "Come on, kid. You've made it halfway." His breathing slowed, chest rising and falling like a tide pulling away. In my mind, I heard Evelyn's clock ticking tick. Tock, tick, tock. Each sound striking the walls of my chest. Suddenly, Teddy jerked his whole body tensing, then gasped like a growl breaking through death itself. "Heartbeats coming back," Nina shouted. "Hold him steady." I held his head, eyes burning, voice shaking. "That's it, Teddy. Fight. You're not alone anymore. 1 minute, 2. Then the monitor beeped steadily again, strong alive. I exhaled and almost laughed through the tears. Nina's voice trembled. "He made it, Carter. You made him fight." I looked at that small, battered creature, still weak but breathing, and said softly, "No, he made me fight." That evening, Cole called again. "Carter Dalton's in custody. The evidence checked out." I said nothing. He went on, "People are talking about you. Some hate you for it, but others are starting to ask themselves if they've been quiet too long." I looked out the window where sunset poured gold over the roofs of the town. Teddy slept peacefully in that light. I murmured half to myself, "If one dog can make people look at their own hearts, then he's done more than any lawyer ever could." When night fell, I sat beside him. The room was still. Outside, Willow Creek remained cold and silent, but inside me, for the first time in years, something had begun to warm. A week after Teddy made it through the worst of it, I started bringing breakfast to the clinic every morning. No one asked me to, but I couldn't sit at home without hearing that slow, steady heartbeat echoing in my head. Each day, he opened his eyes a little longer. Every time he heard my footsteps, his ears twitched, and his tail tapped lightly against the metal bed. That tiny sound, it was the music of life. Nina smiled once and said, You know he reacts strongest to your voice." I laughed softly, maybe because we're the same kind. Both of us were left behind. It wasn't a joke. After Evelyn died, I'd run out of people to talk to. The house was just the ticking of a clock, an empty chair, and an old man who still made 2 cups of coffee every morning out of habit. But now I had a reason to get out of bed again. I cleaned the backyard planted lavender like Evelyn used to love. I imagined the day Teddy would walk through that garden, breathe in that scent, and believe again that the world was worth trusting. 3 weeks later, Nina said he could try standing. I was there, heart pounding, like I was watching a child take his first steps. He stood trembling, hind legs still weak. Then one step, another, and he fell. I knelt beside him, steadied him, and whispered, "It's okay, Teddy. Take your time. I've fallen 1,000 times, too." Nina watched us smiling. "You two are learning how to live again, aren't you?" "Yeah," I said. "But he's learning faster than I am." The day he made it to the clinic door, everyone clapped. I bent down, rubbed his head. "Good job, kid. You're teaching me how to start over." News of Dalton's indictment spread through town. Some called me the crazy old man who saved a dog. Others began leaving food blankets and even envelopes with a few bills at my door. No names, just a few handwritten words. Thank you for speaking up. I didn't need praise. Watching Teddy limp through the sunlight in my yard was enough. Every time he looked back at me with those clear brown eyes, I knew I'd done the right thing. One afternoon, Nina came by holding a folder. "Teddy's cleared for discharge," she said. "But he'll need a caretaker." I asked, "You mean, if you want, you can be his recovery guardian?" I looked out at him, sitting in the yard, the breeze lifting his new fur. "Do you think I deserve that?" She smiled. "No one deserves it more." That night, I brought him home. Teddy curled up on the rug beside the fireplace head, resting on my leg. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows. The fire popped and cracked, and something inside my chest felt warm, still alive. "Welcome home, kid," I whispered. "Here, no one hits you. No one leaves." He lifted his head eyes bright and licked my hand. In that moment, I understood saving him wasn't just about keeping him alive. It was about helping both of us believe in kindness again. The next morning, I took Teddy out for his first walk. The whole town watched. Old folks waved. Children ran beside us, calling his name. Cole, the sheriff, stood on the corner with a rare smile. "You're looking good, Carter," I smiled back. "Not good, just learning to be." Teddy lifted his head, sunlight rippling over his new coat. I reached down, brushed his ear. "You're not the beaten dog anymore. You're proof that kindness once planted will grow anywhere." As we walked on, the wind swept through the pines carrying a faint trace of lavender. Evelyn's scent from another life, from the part of me I thought was gone. And in that quiet moment, I realized justice doesn't just save a life. It revives the hearts that forgot how to beat. 3 weeks after bringing Teddy home, I started to believe everything had finally settled. The house wasn't cold anymore. Every morning, he ran through the lavender patch, tail swaying like a soft hello. I brewed coffee, opened the window, and watched the sunlight pour over his new coat, warm, strong, real. But peace is fragile. It only takes one wrong sound for the past to wake up. That night, when the wind began to howl, something clattered in the yard, something heavy hitting the ground. Teddy jolted. He barked once loud and sharp, then stumbled backward, trembling. Before I could move, bang, a branch slammed against the metal door. Teddy yelped, bolted into the corner. His body, rigid, breath, ragged eyes wide. I froze. That look, the same look he'd worn the night he almost died, was back. I called softly, "Teddy, it's me. You're safe." He didn't hear. His body shook like a wire pulled too tight. I sat down on the floor, kept my voice low. No one's going to hurt you, okay? No one." He whimpered, a choked, broken sound that made my throat close. For a moment, I saw myself the night Evelyn died, sitting in a cold room, hearing my own heart break, and not knowing what to do with the pieces. Slowly, I crawled closer, careful not to wake his memories. I laid my hand on the floor, just a few inches from him. "It's me, Samuel," I whispered. Just the wind, not a stick. Not him. His head turned slightly, eyes still dilated, but his breathing began to steady. I didn't touch him. I just stayed there silent, letting him see that I wasn't leaving. After nearly 15 minutes, Teddy moved one step, then another, until he pressed his head against my knee and let out a long, trembling sigh. I stroked the back of his head gently. "You won again, kid," I murmured. "Not everyone escapes their own darkness." Outside, the storm whipped through the pines, rattling the windows. I looked out and realized it isn't the storm outside that frightens us most, but the one that lives inside our memory. Teddy drifted into sleep on my lap, twitching occasionally as if dreaming. I stayed there all night, my hand never leaving his fur. Beside the fireplace, the small flame flickered against Evelyn's photograph. I whispered, "You see, love." I kept my promise. I didn't let anyone be left behind. The next morning, Nina called. "Mr. Carter, I just got the report." Dalton confessed. "He's getting 2 years," I said quietly. "So justice knows how to find its way home." "Yes," she said, "and Teddy, I think he's chosen you as his home." I hung up and looked at Teddy, still asleep, breathing slowly and evenly. In the soft morning light, I saw his neck where it had once been bruised and swollen, now marked by a single thin scar, silver and smooth, almost beautiful. It wasn't a wound anymore. It was the signature of survival. That afternoon, I took Teddy outside. The sky after the storm was impossibly clear. Cool air, the scent of pine sap, the sound of wet soil underfoot. Teddy walked beside me, head high. When a metal gate from a neighbor's yard slammed shut with a loud clang, he stopped for a second, looked at me, then kept walking. No fear, no running. I smiled. Good boy. We sat together on the porch steps. In front of us stood the old fence that once marked Dalton's yard, a line between who we were and who we'd become. Now it was just a few rotting boards, the wind humming through them like a tired sigh. I spoke softly, more to the wind than to anyone. If the world can be that cruel, then the only thing we can do is be kinder than it is. Teddy rested his head on my leg. I ran my hand along his back, feeling the steady, warm rhythm of his heart. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what could still be saved. And maybe that's how people are saved, by choosing to stay beside something trembling and frightened until it finally believes in peace again. It's been exactly 1 year since the day I carried Teddy out of Dalton's yard. Spring has returned to Willow Creek, not gray and cold this time, but bright and peaceful in a way that feels almost new. Every morning I still wake to the same sound, the thump of Teddy's paws across the porch, the soft jingle of his collar bell keeping time with his breath. I open the door and see him standing in the lavender garden, his coat shining under the sunlight, head tilted as if to ask, "Where to today, old man?" I grin, lift my cane and say, "Just a walk, kid." Same as always. We follow the dirt road toward the northern fields. The pine woods ahead catch the first light resin and damp earth blending in the breeze. The air carries warmth again, the kind I thought I'd forgotten. Willow Creek has changed too. Marlene's little grocery now has a donation box for Brave Paws Shelter. Children play in the streets carrying drawings of Teddy the dog who taught the town to speak up for what's right. Even Dalton, after his release, sent me a handwritten letter. I was wrong. If that dog's still alive, thank you for not abandoning him the way I did. I didn't reply. I just folded it neatly. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it softens the present. Teddy and I still visit Dr. Nina once a month. She likes to tease, "You know, mister," Carter. I think you're his patient now, not the other way around. Maybe she's right. Since he came into my life, I sleep more deeply, eat better, and laugh more than I ever thought I would again. Some nights I sit by the fire watching him curled up at my feet, and the house no longer feels empty. Evelyn's picture is still on the mantel, but the firelight on the glass no longer looks cold. I often talk to her like she's still listening. I found what you always believed in, I tell her softly. Kindness, just later than you hoped. One day Nina asked Mr. Carter, "May I share your story with Brave Paws? People need to hear it." I smiled and patted Teddy's head. "Go ahead, just don't say I saved him. Tell them he saved me." Late one April afternoon, we went back to where it all began, the patch of ground behind Dalton's old fence. Grass covered everything now. No blood, no chains. I placed a small wooden sign into the soil, carved with the words, "For those who were hurt and for those who stayed." Teddy sat beside me quietly. I rested my hand on his head. "That day, I thought I was saving you from dying," I said. "But now I know you saved me from dying inside." He lifted his gaze, eyes deep and clear, the kind of look only creatures that have known pain can carry. A soft wind swept through lavender, mixing with the scent of earth. I closed my eyes and listened to my heartbeat, slow, steady, at peace. When I turned back, I saw Cole standing at a distance, smiling faintly. Behind him, a few townsfolk were walking their dogs, and I realized something simple: justice isn't just written in law. It's in the moment people start to care again. On the way home, Teddy ran ahead, his shadow stretching long across the grass. He looked back, once tail wagging, hard eyes bright as if to say, "We did it." I stopped in the middle of the road, taking in the trees, the wind, the sunlight, all of it alive, and I whispered to myself, "The world is still beautiful, as long as we don't give up." It's been exactly 1 year since the day I carried Teddy out of that nightmare. Now, every morning, I still find him lying by the fireplace, his head resting on my leg, breathing slow and steady, peaceful, as if he's never known fear. This little wooden house used to echo with nothing but the ticking of a clock and silence, but now it's filled with footsteps, soft breaths, and a reason for me to wake up each morning. Teddy's grown strong, fearless, and whole. He no longer lowers his head at the sound of the wind, or flinches when someone calls too loudly. Instead, he stands tall and looks forward as if speaking for both of us. We survived, and we still believe in kindness. When I walk Teddy through town, people stop, smile, and ask how he's doing. Some faces that once turned away now bow their heads slightly. And I realize justice isn't just about punishing the cruel. Justice is when people begin to feel ashamed of their silence and choose to be a little kinder instead. I'm old now, but because of Teddy, I've learned again how to love, how to wait, and how to believe that miracles are simpler than we think. They happen the moment we choose not to walk away even once. If this story touched you, please share it. Not for me, not even for Teddy, but for those trembling souls still waiting somewhere for a hand to reach out. Every view, every comment, every time you hit subscribe is a reminder that kindness still exists, and that we, the ones who dare to feel and to care, are still here, still choosing to stay. Let's make this world a place where no living soul ever has to fear the sound of the wind again. Because sometimes saving one small life is how we save the part of ourselves that still believes in good.